yeah, to think outside the box. You need a box.
Yes, and it worries me when I hear people just wanting to be in their studio and not talk to anybody. You could be a window display artist, was one thing that my mom kept saying.
What is that?
Here, I'll take some Lemsip.
Okay.
Right.
So, today's visit is in the studio of Suzanne Mooney, who is an artist from Ireland, but now in Helsinki.
Yeah, welcome to my studio.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, we just started again this because technical issues, a bit.
No problem. Yeah, so you were asking me about my practice or what?
Yes, what do
I
you
work?
do?
Yeah, what do I do? So I would say that photography and image making and thinking about the medium of photography is very central to my practice. I studied photography, but it manifests in moving image, objects, found materials, and many other things. But I think I think through that medium, and I always return to it, even if I kind of delve into other forms of making. Yeah.
And that's very interesting to me because I also have studied photography at some point. But very quickly I was like, this is not enough. It needs to be more, something like, I was always trying to add something to it.
Yeah.
To the object of the image to make it as a different thing.
Yeah. Well, I think the history of the medium has made us question everything about, you know, its truth value or its purpose or its function, and like I'm really interested in like why do fine artists or contemporary, why do we still use photography when it's so well, it's shifting so much, and its purpose and its value and everything is kind of evolving with the technologies and with societal use of images and shifting materiality of it. So those kind of things are really interesting to kind of work with and around and through and against. And so there's kind of, I always seem to think that there's a lot more to mine within photography as it kind of goes through these changes. What about you?
Yeah, and it has always been questioned, like, what is this thing? Is
Absolutely.
this art? How is this art? This is not art.
Yeah.
And then all the theories of the 20th century about it, and yeah.
And what's wild to think about, it's like photography has always been used far more in the sciences, in medicine, in architecture, in family albums, rather than this niche, high-end use of an artist using the medium material and photojournalism and everything. So there's so many other modes that photography has existed. And this purist thinking or something is really a niche peripheral practice to work with photography as an artist.
But I think that here it's pretty established as a thing, and there are many artists who use it, and also on a very conceptual level. And
yeah. But as you say, like both of us are, you know, we work with it, but we also incorporate other elements or other things with it when we're working with it.
True, yeah.
I've certainly found it to be the most intriguing material and performative thing. I'm constantly going back to reading about it and interested in people's practices that use it, and then myself as well. And I love the dark room as well. I kind of can't get out of the dark room. I really like it. Yeah. I studied in London, and we had no studio spaces in the Royal College of Art, but we had lots of studios, photo studios, and dark rooms. And so we were mole people. We were always in the dark. Or some people would not use it at all, but I became a mole person, and yeah, I loved it. I was lucky there was very few students at the time. I know that they've doubled one of the good old days, I think, of art education, when there was enough space and facilities for people and didn't cost a fortune. So
yeah, especially I think in England,
yeah.
education is horrendously expensive
I
nowadays.
just don't think I would have been able to do it now. I was lucky, and I don't think that it should be down to luck, but which is quite interesting to be here and seeing, like, because art education is free, or education, if you get in, it's limited access, but I think it's a real...
If you come from EU.
If you come from the EU, yes, that's a good point.
But
yeah.
It's still better than in other places, for sure.
Let's hope it's not going to be eroded, but let's see.
I usually like to start with a bit of a context, a background, like you are where you are at the moment, which we will definitely talk about, and I'm very curious for, but how did you get there? Like, where did you come from? Like, did you always know you would be an artist?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I was one of those people that I liked to draw. I liked collage and making. I wasn't super good at school. I'm dyslexic, so I was really bad at maths and spelling.
Okay.
But I really liked drawing and art, and I set myself that as
Did you have other artists in your family?
No, not at all. They're all scientists or very logical humans.
So how were they, like, when you told them you want to be an artist?
Yeah, it was always like, that's great, but there was always but what does that look like? And there was you could be a window display artist, was one thing that my mom kept saying.
What is that?
Shop windows, designing them. For some reason, she thought that was a valid job after art college, that you would, shops front display.
I mean, maybe,
which would be a cool job, but that wasn't what on my mind.
I would think it's so niche, like so few people would even get to such a job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't think necessarily you have to be an artist to do it either. You work in retail, and it's.
I guess if you have some
design
aesthetic sense.
Yeah, for sure. But no artists. And I grew up in the west of Ireland, and there was barely any art galleries. Visual arts is not big there, but theatre is, and music is, and other kind of cultural entities. But so I kind of knew very early on that I wanted to go to art school like nothing else, and the other was I would be moving from Galway as soon as possible. Yeah.
Oh, you're from Galway?
I am.
Yeah. When I was in my bachelor's, there were these several girls from Galway that came on Erasmus exchange.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's where I got my first impressions of Irish people. They were so nice. They were just like,
We're known for our niceness. Yes.
Chatty.
Really nice.
Yeah. I've never been to Ireland, but
you have to go reconnect with them.
So from Galway, you went to
I went to art school in Dublin, and I did a very kind of chop and change 7 years before I got even a BA. I kind of was a disaster zone for my parents, but it was actually the best thing that I could have done, because I started with a foundation and then you proceed for 3 more years to finish a degree. But I was like 17. I was so young and clueless, and exiting art school at 19, 20, I would have known how to be an artist. So the delay and chopping and changing, I did 4 different art schools to get to a degree level, and then I did my MA in one place. But so I had a lot of experience of different systems and different courses and different contexts and cities, and it was brilliant, because I went from fine art to photography, back to fine art, back to photography, because they were the 2 things that I wanted to do. But I loved photography so much, but it was very narrow in some aspects. And then the fine art like it's really weird, like the history of photography and the history of art are just parallel universes. But it was really weird to kind of recognize this as like the people that we were revering in one field are not the same as the people we're revering in another. But like you're going...
But they have come together at this point.
Yeah,
haven't they?
now they are, yeah. But, and there's less... Well, I don't know, there's still definitely a photo world that's separate to contemporary art world. And with art... with photo spaces and photo fairs and a different kind of audience. I'm doing a show at the moment in Photo Centre Perry in Turku, and it's a very different audience than goes to the, literally in the same building, the Turku Taidelhalli. You know, they have different kind of...
It's interesting. I've never paid attention to that, but yeah, maybe you're right.
Or I had work on a group exhibition in the Museum of Photography here in Helsinki, maybe 2 summers ago, and I was just telling people about it, colleagues and friends, and they were like, "Oh, I haven't been to that space in 15 years, 20 years," and they're artists, and they live in the city. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Why wouldn't you go? They're not photographers, so they don't. It's got a different audience." Yeah. And that made me kind of rethink that maybe it still has these kind of divisions or kind of silos.
Maybe.
Yeah, because if I think about how many times I go to the Printmaking Association gallery, it's very little.
Yeah, I've been there maybe a couple of times.
Yeah.
For my 10 years in this city.
You see, so I'm maybe twice the whole time I've been here. So. Yeah, anyway. But yeah, long and winding road through art school, and that was a good thing, I have to say. Yeah, I got to do it slowly, and
I mean, it's
different
not
people.
There is not one right way to do it, you know.
No. I did think it was a big failure at the time. I did think, God, why am I not just following through? Like I would be stopping courses and jumping to another, or ending one but then shifting, various reasons why I didn't continue, or I ended and then moved. But it was in retrospect the making of me surviving as an artist.
And that's very important and good that you managed to do it.
Yeah. Bit of growing up time and maturing and taking it a bit more seriously as well after a few years, kind of, that when you go through school education, you're made to be so passive and infantilized in terms of the teacher kind of imparts information, you absorb it, you do your, retain the information and regurgitate in an exam because you're told to, or you have a test at a certain date. And everything is so passive in that system. When you shift into third level education, and especially art education, where everything is self-driven, self-motivated, free thinking, lateral thinking, and it was a whole different kind of, I was just waiting for them to tell me what to do, kind of, or how many pages of this do you need? Because that was always the way that it would kind of be set up, and took a long time.
Did you go to like an art school, a high school type of, or was it a different type?
No, a regular high school.
Yeah, maybe that's why I think that I also didn't go to a art high school, but I think that they went very differently from normal high school. No
such thing as an art high school in Ireland, I can tell you.
Oh, really?
No. Oh. I would have loved it, but no, not a chance. Okay. No, don't get me on the education system in Ireland, because that's a whole other podcast.
We don't
reform.
We don't have to go.
I'll get very heated about that conversation. Yeah.
Okay.
Run by the nuns.
Saying it, run by the nuns. I don't know if you have watched the episode with Jane Hughes, who is also actually, from Ireland.
I know Jane, but I don't think I've watched the podcast.
She also touched upon the education in Ireland.
We're all traumatized. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating for me, because
very different.
The education in Bulgaria,
Belgrade.
at least when I was there, there was nothing about religion in it. Nothing.
Okay.
Zero.
Yeah.
I think now they have maybe these like non-mandatory classes if somebody wants to learn something about religion, but when I was there was absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so if you're religious, you go to Sunday school or whatever.
Church.
Yeah. No, just all state schools, not all, but most state schools are actually run by the church. So it's really messed up and needs reform, and it's happening very slowly. So that's where my gripe about primary school, higher school.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
okay.
yeah.
Moving on.
But yeah, Jane.
Yes.
She has a lovely studio.
She does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
It feels like she really lives in that space. Yeah, it's good. I think painters do that, though. They have a lot more.
They need a bit more light, also.
And well, we're in the cave here. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends what you do.
It absolutely depends. Yeah. It's funny because I come here to read and to think and to sort out some stuff, but I then have other spaces and places that I go to, dark rooms or studios, or make things in other places. So actually lots of things don't happen in this space.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is it comfortable to have this like multiple places to go? Isn't it a bit of a hassle to have to?
It's a bit of a hassle and it slows down processes, but it would just be impossible to have a large enough space to have a studio set up, as well as darkroom set up, as well as computer side of things, or comfortable to read or assemble stuff and objects. So for me, it's just easier to have this as home base, but then there's satellite. Or like I don't make any of my digital prints. They happen. Like I go to
well, the digital prints I could understand better. Because
and framing, and then dark rooms that are decent size. If I was to kind of create my own dark room, it'd be really quite crap. So, but it's always been like that. Compartmentalize and do bits and bobs, and then it kind of comes together here.
So you do digital photography as well as analog photography?
Absolutely, yeah. Anything that makes most sense for either logistics or conceptual reasons why it should be one thing or another.
Do you have a preference generally towards one or the other?
I do prefer the darkroom. I do prefer making with my hands. I do feel much more connected when it's that. I still find it magical to process and to print with chemicals in trays, whereas I'm not that excited to be in front of a screen post-production and spotting for hours on end, and even though I do that, and then I don't print digitally because I get it done elsewhere with other much more expert people, and I feel a little bit of a distance then to it. So yeah. I
mean, it's very expensive if you want to print high quality digital by yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, so I think I flit between the two and don't have a hierarchy about what's better or it's just what's makes most sense for an idea or a project. Yeah. So for example, recently I have been working a lot with glass as a material and a substance and objects out of glass.
That was one other reason why I was interested in your work, because you combine photography with glass, and that's not very common, I think.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying exploring this material, this magical, amazing substance that's so full of different characteristics and properties, and is so both liquid, solid, transparent, opaque. It has so many kind of opposites, and it's very durable, yet fragile and brittle, so it has such an array of ways of being that I've just been really interested in exploring different characteristics of it in relation to photography. And
do you know Maja Savolainen?
I do, yeah.
She was also talking about photography and glass.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
But your practices are very different.
Our practices are different, yeah.
How you take those two subjects, you look at them very differently.
Yeah, and she's also on to different places right now. But yes, we've talked about our love of both material and medium. Yeah. We're both doing a PhD at Aalto.
Oh yeah, that is true.
Yeah. So that's. I even saw her on Friday. So she was seminar group. Yeah. So yeah, she's.
So I can ask
artist.
you as well. Like, how does an artist end up in a PhD? Why would any artist want to do a PhD?
Yeah, I didn't go there for a very long time. I kind of had maybe a decade of thinking about whether that's a good idea or not. It's certainly not for everybody or everybody's practice. But ultimately I took the plunge, one for community and a bit of structure in research and kind of a push or something like this need for deadlines or this need for kind of a purpose to something. I felt that framework would suit my practice, and I was robust enough within my practice to know that it wouldn't kind of send me too crazy, because I think it's a very lonely path, and it's a big endeavor and very isolating ultimately. You just there alone. I think my art school experiences of BA and MA are all collegiate and peer learning so strongly, and it's all about who you're with. But the PhD is quite different, and you're doing it on your own. But I decided there was enough of a reason to kind of enter into that system. And I kept my question or my subject really tight and simple, that I never lost sight of it. Now, it took a while to get to it where it was, but it's absolute blinkers on. That's what I'm looking at, and there's nothing else that I'm looking at.
Now I have to ask you what it is about.
It's about glass and how it intersects with photography.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's very much, it's not like listing all the times that photography and glass kind of, there's glass in lenses, there's glass in glass plate negatives. Very boring kind of to do that, but it's how can I think about this medium that I use so much through a material that's been with it, literally been there before photography became something that was tangible and fixed in print, and is part of its future solutions for storage data and touch screen device. So it's a really interesting speculative material to go on a journey with when you're trying to think about what is photography, or what is it now, or what is it in the future, or what has it been, if we've been so set on a course of who are the main key characters and figures and processes that this medium is gone on with. Like, there's a very strong path of the pioneers and the key names, but actually there's a whole kind of peripheral practice that it's really interesting to pick up both past and future when you think about it in a different alternative way. And my way is with this material of glass. So I've been finding interesting nuggets of knowledge that are just so interesting. So it's not a rewriting, but it's a tool to speculate and imagine with. So I'm talking a bit about the concept of fragmentation, I'm writing about glass plate negatives as this substrate of information, of knowledge, and how there's a really interesting research practice by Microsoft looking for cheap alternative data storage solutions. And they have returned to glass as a way of storing data. So they're etching into glass. So I'm really interested in making these links between past or future or possibilities that have come through this material. Yeah. So that's why I'm doing a PhD, because it's allowed me to kind of go very deep with one question or one thinking. That's very clear in like it's glass plus photo, but within that there's a minefield, a whole world to potentially explore. Yeah.
So is also your art practice very focused in this, or is it
has
a bit
been
more
in the
broad?
last few years? Yeah. So I've been making a lot of work with glass and about glass, or glass being both the subject and object of making. So I've been working a lot with putting glass into the projector. Instead of having a negative, having glass as the negative, projecting through it. So it's cameraless photography, and the glass is recording its own image, I suppose. Yeah. So it's a way of imaging a material without going through the camera system. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
Yeah. So it's like scanning pieces of glass.
Yeah.
But in a projector, it's light passes through it.
Yeah, and then it stays
onto
on
the sensitive material, the paper or something, and
Yeah.
it just records it different. And so I've been doing this with different types of glass, sea glass and shattered proof glass, that doesn't necessarily not shatter, it just stays together. So it creates all these kind of cells of
Little
broken
cracks.
pieces, yeah. And other pieces of glass in this way.
Glass is a beautiful, beautiful material.
Oh, it really is. I've been lucky enough to work with some glass blowers to make some objects that are in the show at the moment. Actually, I have one here I can show you if you want to see it, but I've been making lenses.
Of course I want to see.
And it's just been so wonderful to be in these rooms where there's heat from the furnace and glass liquid doing its magical thing and then blowing into it. It's just beautiful. And I mean that's all because it takes years of expertise, so I'm kind of just asking them to make certain objects for me, and then I'm polishing and grinding, and even that part of slowing and calming and taking your time and just feeling the material. It's beautiful. I did a really interesting course in Poland, but online through COVID, about conservation of glass, and it was glass through the microscope, and it was in the Art Academy in Krakow, and they literally were showing us how to identify how a piece of glass was made through looking at it macroscopically, and then also how erosion or the elements or whatever have affected glass.
That is.
And they kept talking about how porous and how fragile and how damaging certain conditions are for glass, and you know your dishwasher is like the death of glass and all that kind of stuff. Because I've been talking, reading about the substance of glass and hearing about how durable it is and how neutral and how inert and how like it'll last forever kind of situation. And it's really interesting to hear conservative
They're like,
of the
no,
material.
that is not the case.
That's terrible. That's how do you store it? What's the conditions for it? And yeah, but it was so fascinating to. It was a shame that it was only via Zoom.
Yeah.
But that was the time. Yeah.
Those were the days.
Those were the days, yeah.
We didn't quite talk about how you ended up in Helsinki.
Oh,
you were in London and then suddenly? What
Okay,
happened?
so I was in London and then moved to Bristol for a few years. And speaking about studios, I had an amazing studio there in Spike Island, which is a really big studio complex with about 60 artists, an old biscuit factory or tea factory. I can't remember which.
Usually those old factory spaces are great.
Oh, it was amazing.
For artist studios.
It was amazing. It was really good. Good for me because I don't like to be too isolated, and so there's community to have a cup of tea with, and then you go back to your space, and lots of events and talks and exhibitions happening. But anyway, I was there for a few years, and then moved to the US, and then spent 4 or 5 years there, and then moved to Helsinki. Yeah, from
Why?
7 years ago. Why? Many reasons, but not necessarily Finland or Helsinki. It was kind of a blind move. I'd never been here before, but it was back to Europe, and I really wanted to be back somewhere in Europe, closer to family and home a little bit, but not necessarily go back to Ireland. And it was an opportunity that happened that allowed us to move, myself and my partner. And it was always with the, we'll land here and we'll see what happens, and then we'll move if it doesn't work out. And 7 years later, we're still here. So it kind of worked out. It kind of felt like a good place to be in many reasons. It's an interesting kind of, I'd never really knew this side of Europe, and I found it really interesting to travel to the Baltic and Nordic and Scandi kind of countries and get to know them a bit. And it's also, I would say, partly my age and where I'm at in life, but it's calm and chilled, and
it's not very difficult to be. I mean, it is difficult in some regards, but
yeah.
In some, it's pretty easy to live here.
Yeah, I think it's really good to have that quiet, concentrated time. There's not so much in commute time like there is in large cities, or like rent is relatively okay in relation to salary. So in other contexts, I was just working in order to, survive, and never really having enough time then for practice. Or there's not a huge amount going on, and I mean that in a good way. There's loads going on, but also you can really have your time to, go and do your own work and not be social. And
definitely you can not be social if you want.
Yeah, there's no expectation of being at everything, and I don't know that that's great for our community here.
No, not at all.
It's not, but I've enjoyed the idea that I can. Yeah, it's a catch-22, I think, this one, because it's not good for the whole community of cultural activity when there's so few people going and supporting and active, being very active. But at the same time, what that affords us all is time in our spaces to make and do and write or think, or it's the time versus everything else.
What are you doing right now?
Well, I mentioned
with that time that you have.
I mentioned the PhD. So I have a grant at the moment. So I have a year's 12 months working grant, and that has allowed me to step away from my normal teaching. I lecture, and now I'm full-time working on my PhD. So I've just finished 2 exhibitions as part of that. One is still up, and I'll be taking it down in November. And then I'm writing different chapters of my doctoral PhD. So I'm shifting practice from making to writing, or which is unusual for me. I don't always write, but I think I'm excited by it. Yeah, it's amazing to have this working ground to be able to do this, because before I would be eking out weekend time or evening or morning or whatever, and attempting.
So you were a full-time lecturer?
Yeah, yeah. Which I can do many tasks, but I can't do deep thinking and deep editing and, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too much going on. My brain can only hold certain amounts of information. But yeah, so that the practice right now is about looking at and describing and making and thinking and through glass and this material as a material and photography and where they intersect and how that might be interesting in different kind of points of reference. Yeah, but maybe I should talk about the exhibition, because it's on at the moment,
you
and
can
it's
talk about it. Yeah, sure.
Because it might help to describe what the practice looks like, or it has been at the moment.
If it's still going, I mean, I'm thinking when this episode is gonna come out, but when in November does it end?
The 3rd of November. So no,
Well,
but it'll have just been over.
Yeah, it would have just been over.
Fresh in my mind.
Okay, tell everybody who would see this episode what they have just missed. Or maybe they didn't miss, maybe they went and saw it. Went.
Well, it's called Shatter Scatter, and the whole kind of it's two rooms. One is dark with a video projection space, and the other is light with a whole assemblage of different images and objects. And it is all essentially working around the idea of this idea of brokenness, the shattered state of glass. But what does that mean conceptually in terms of being no longer whole, or thinking about fragmented states, or we talk a lot about being, you know, I was shattered, I was broken, or taking on this kind of psychological idea of a fragmented being or a fragmented object.
It's very postmodern.
Is it?
Well, yeah, like breaking down all the modernisms and those ideology.
Yeah.
This fragmentation,
okay.
I think it is very...
Yeah, and taking bits, yeah. What I'm really interested in is, rather than thinking about, okay, so the stumble and the glass falls from the hand and shatters, and that's a disaster, or it's a, oh shit, kind of trauma to the object, and it's irreparably damaged. You're not putting it back together. That's its state now. And it's often thought of as a kind of bad thing, or it's something destructive or violent has happened. And I'm quite interested in thinking about, well, this fragmented shard or piece or bit of a thing, perhaps it's not as bad to be in that state, or there's positives to the idea of not being a whole.
You know, in Bulgaria, when somebody breaks something, it's usually said, "Oh, this is going to bring you good luck."
Oh, okay, great.
So,
yeah, and I've heard recently another custom is that if you've lost something, that you turn a drinking glass over on the table, and it kind of helps you find it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that I haven't heard.
Yeah. I hadn't heard it before, but just thinking about this kind of superstition with glass, because glass is such an old material. It has these kind of there's a lot of customs or thinking of being in fear of glass. That glass is slightly spiritual or cosmic or magical.
Then there's the crystal ball, which is also glass.
Yeah, and projecting into the future and thinking about it. So there's loads of different kind of customs or thinkings and symbolism in relation to glass. And I've just been really interested in delving into. There was a work by the British artist Cornelia Parker that she made in the 90s, and it's a stack of drinking glasses, really kind of tall and precariously kind of arcing. And etched into each glass is a word, and it says, one day this glass will break. And so she has a whole body of work on this entity of like the inevitability that this material, no matter what it is, will break. And I love that. I love this idea that, so the exhibition works with that. There's a lot of broken glass, either described or there, and also hanging glass as if it could shatter and break. So there's a little bit of danger or precarity with these kind of pendulum
Want to make
discs.
people nervous when they see the word there.
Yeah, it is quite nerve-wracking. Yeah, because they can swing and be smashed into the wall. And I had to kind of grapple with, am I okay with if these very fragile things do break?
You should be.
And yes, of course I should be. I should be all right with it. It's just the nature of it. And I just didn't want to break it in the installation. So I was very nervous in the installation hanging all this glass. But now I'm okay if somebody breaks it, actually.
Yeah.
I don't want them to clean it up. They have to leave it the way it is, yeah.
Some time ago, you mentioned about, in the connection to your studies, about the community. That you were very much enjoying that sense when you were studying, and then that's why you started partly the PhD.
Yeah. I think like
is there another community
absolutely.
for you here?
I have many communities that I'm lucky enough to be kind of able to tap into and have support network, and whether it's to wind down with a glass of wine, or if it's to, like I'm part of a group, we call it Salon, and it's just 4 artists that gather sporadically to talk about what we're doing, or maybe talk through, in a supportive kind of trust space where you kind of go, I'm really struggling with this.
That's great.
Yeah. And actually, I've had that in a few different locations of where I've lived, and whenever I've managed it, it's been really very, very important. And other people, like I like to go to openings or see exhibitions with. And then I am part of the Kuva community, and I really love hanging out with students and hearing what another generation are interested in and concerned with, and it keeps me young. It keeps me, it's really interesting how amazingly different. Like I would always think like, oh yeah, I'm like so close to where they are, but actually I'm not. I'm 20 years older than them, and they don't identify with me as being the same generation, but I still think I'm 20 in my head. So
there are many reels, Insta reels about this thing.
Yes.
I've seen it.
Down with the kids, I'm like so not, and we're of very different generations, but it's so good to be able to interact and have conversations, and it's not about me imparting. In my day, it's actually it's how we're all navigating where we're at right now, with the contexts and the situations that we've encountered and we've lived. So it's I really value being able to be with other younger generations of artists and seeing similarities and then total differences, But I teach courses related to how to survive as an artist. They're like professional skills, professional practice. And
interesting. What kind of a course is that exactly? Like, what do people learn in that course?
So it's very discursive, or very much about what systems or institutions or
very
entities,
practically,
or it's totally practical. Like what exists for us as artists, what is out there that we can tap into, and that might be like legal supports, or kind of peer support, or financial supports, or opportunities to show an
That's so
elevator
great
work.
that there is such a course. I have never had such a course, and
I know, I never had it
I was
either.
just blindly discovering how
We
things
were
work.
all blindly discovering, and all not discussing how are you surviving, how am I surviving, and we like, it's just crazy that art schools or our education wasn't gearing towards, okay, so we're getting this skill and we're having the space and time to learn that material or medium or subject matter, and being so capable and talented, and yet that structure around it, clueless, absolutely clueless. Yeah, so I'm really, I'm passionate about finding information, sharing information, and just figuring out where are the blind spots, and what are the things that are made me really nervous, the cliff edge of leaving art school into, right, how do I do this, are kind of the same things that some of the students are talking about, and it's this kind of stability and financial stability and community and support, and those things are so important. Yes, you have your own practice and you're making your own thing, but you're never doing it alone. This is not an isolated thing, and it worries me when I hear people just wanting to be in their studio and not talk to anybody, because you immediately lose sight of what's the conversation, what's going on, what's the evolution. We have to be a bit resilient and a bit malleable and a bit like moving.
This is one main reason why I do this
Really?
podcast also. Yes, because
you're sharing.
I want to share
doing?
people's practices, and I usually ask people how they sustain that practice.
Yeah.
But you already mentioned that, so I'm not going to ask you about it.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I want to talk about how I did it. I don't come from a family that was just going to give me a stipend or a kind of, here you go, there's your
lifelong
rent.
support.
No, exactly. And also lived in places where it was expensive, and so always through art school and through everything, I had a second job, and that was varying degrees of post office, waitressing, etc. But very soon into like doing photography. I knew it was a skill. It was a kind of very tangible skill that I could kind of use as making money from, as well as my art practice. And I was never very good at that, but I would do certain kind of documentation jobs. But I became a technician very quickly in an art school in London, and that stabilized. I was paying my rent, access to all the great conversations that were going on, facilities as well I used, and was able to sustain my practice with this 2-track, very in parallel with each other. And I've always worked, and actually when I had a period of time where I was not working and I was only an artist, and then I got pregnant and was a mom as well, so that's a job as well, but anyway, I found it really difficult. It didn't suit me to have all the time in the world to make. It didn't suit me to... I just became so unproductive and really lonely and isolated, and in a strange headspace where actually it was the opposite to what I needed. It's always a case of finding the sweet spot and the balance, and I don't think I have it with having a full-time job and teaching and then trying to make practice. But right now, with the working grant for 1 year, it's fabulous. But
it's funny. I'm finding it, I don't know, maybe I have the wrong impression, but I feel like here a little bit it is somewhat of a, not a taboo, but a bit of a thing to say that you are working something else apart from your practice.
Absolutely.
And I wonder why. Why is there this stigma of, I have a job to be able to pay my rent?
It's because there's very few spaces in art school. So like if we think of Kuvataidel Academy, 25 people get to go through that art education from BA into MA, and then they take 20 more into the MA. That's a very small pool of individuals that the Finnish state, with a Finnish state education, is saying they are the professional artists.
There's Aalto University.
There's Aalto, there's other arts educations, but we are very in a society that says you've studied this in this place, you are the professional in that, and it's quite in the way that I've experienced, like architects becoming artists or filmmakers going into glassware or whatever. This malleability of creative disciplines is seen as a positive in other places, is not seen as necessarily positive here. So anyway, you've got the working grant system. Those professionals want the working grant to be the profession,
but very, very few of them actually manage to get the working grant.
And it is only going one direction.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that that is shifting, that there is a little bit more scope and expanding about what it is to be an artist and how you can survive and manage and be in this kind of field, and that sometimes taking charge of that with finding an alternative means for a salary with the skills that you've learned and have is far more there's far more agency in that than hope and a prayer on your application being successful. And you can tap into the two systems, but to have that idea that I'm a failure because I don't have a full-time making a living from my artistic practice is really, well, you know, no other place feels like that's not even a possibility. When you're starting out, you're never going to be making money from your practice.
I mean, even if you are some time into it, there's still no guarantee.
And then the ebb and flow.
Yeah,
like you can have
exactly.
a very good year and then crash. Mm-hmm. And that happened to me. I was having lots of shows, lots of success, and then it was like, boom, something happened and it was like flatline. And you're like, oh, okay. How do you navigate this? So being in charge of a way to pay rent and a way to have a studio and have stability in your life. For me, that was important. Yeah.
It's very important for everybody,
yeah.
I would say, yeah.
If you're not independently wealthy, then, yeah.
I mean, great for those very few who are, but I don't think the majority is. Yeah, and then there's not so many mecenates out there. To, just take somebody under their wing.
What are you doing as well as your practice?
I have been doing visual design for a while as a freelancer.
I know that some people do that kind of seasonal, full-time work, summer or winter, or whatever it is, but it's like
that's
full,
totally
intense
fine.
work.
Why is that not considered totally fine?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I hope we can just dispel this, and because there's an awful lot of kind of lack of self-confidence with that kind of, oh, I'm a failure because I am having to do this thing in order to be an artist, and therefore can I actually say that I'm an artist? I mean, I had a period of time where I was not making, I had a severe block and probably didn't make art for 2 years, and within that I'm still an artist, you know. I haven't made anything in a long time and really struggling with it, but no, that's very fundamentally part of who I am. And so I don't know if productivity is necessarily the
no, it's
and
about
the
identity.
full-timeness of this thing is the kind of measure of what the thing is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's such a strange and wonderful kind of field that thing that we do. Like there's so many ways to do it, and you said that earlier. Like there's so many kind of pathways to it and then ways to do it, and also this idea of what is success, what does it look like. And honest to God, it's really interesting. The way I thought of success when I was 20 is hugely different to what I do, like how I think about it now. Like, I might have thought like, oh, I have to be showing, and I want museum shows, and I have to be showing regularly, and I want to be selling work and represented by a gallery. All these kind of things that would indicate the value of the thing that I do. And it has totally shifted into wanting to have really good conversations with people, a kind of truth to my own practice. And yes, I do want it to hit an audience, but it's not necessarily on well, it has to be that show, or I want to work with that curator. I just don't think like that, and it's really good to get it out of my head that I have to have a particular track. I'm sure it would work very well if you really had that in your...
But then there's so much pressure on you, and how...
It just doesn't
how
suit my
good work do you do after you have this huge amount of pressure in your head?
Yeah. And like reading around this idea of sustaining practices, there's a lot of people who write about sometimes the success is just getting out of bed, and I think I love that. I love that you kind of you measure success by the thing where you're at. And if it's to get out of bed and wash and be sitting with a book, brilliant, tick, well done, because that wasn't the case yesterday. And those kind of things. So I take much more charge in, it's not that I will have made a publication and I will have worked with that key figure or that key institution. Because that's, that means schmoozing in a way that I find really uncomfortable and difficult. And anyway, we're in Finland, so it's really easier. It's much easier to be outside of all of that here.
You can be outside of everything here.
Yes, we are.
You mentioned that you were having this creative block for a couple of years. I usually ask people if they have had it and how they coped with it, how to deal with that.
Yeah, I did. It coincided with a move to the US, so totally new context, and didn't have a support network of people around me. It was like this perfect storm of things happening. I also do very long arcs of themes or ideas within my practice. So I kind of could do a project for 5 years and just really go deep with making and thinking and reading. So once I'm in that, I know what I'm up to and I'm just following the arc. But I hit a point where it was between one and finding a new idea, and that always takes about a year to work out what it is, or longer, whatever, or shorter. But I'm in another long arc at the moment, so it's there's these kind of evolutions of your practice, and that's just happens to be my rhythm. And then I was pregnant and had a baby, and that did things to me biologically, and my brain went to mush, and I was alone without support, family support, and
that's
was
so difficult.
So
I mean, I don't know,
things.
honestly, I don't know, but I have read about it.
Hey, you come out of it, and it's both a positive and a negative. I don't want to ever say that having a kid is it's challenging, yes, but it also has made me stop bullshitting and really focus and be really like, well, this time means a lot. I can't do everything, so what is really important to do? So it focuses the mind, definitely. So it's not all bad. But
no, is that what I said? No, that was not what I said.
No, you didn't. But I think it can. A lot of artists
But for artists
female
specifically, it's very difficult to also be a mom. I
think. I know many people who have chosen that it's just not going to be possible, and I totally understand why. If you've it immediately restricts what you can do, like the amount of residencies you could go on, traveling, and the nightlife of, or the social life of art as well is difficult.
But you did survive. You
I
did come out of that.
Survive.
How?
So the first thing I did, and I wish that I had done it sooner, was just go, yeah, I'm in trouble. Acknowledge the being in this space. I was hitting my head against the wall, back and, you know, trying to fix it so hard. And actually, I should have just stepped away for a bit. Just go. I'm not going into the studio. Just take some chill time. Literally banging my head against the wall, like to try and figure out why can't I do this. I also kind of just went, well, I'm not making art anymore. I'm just playing. So I had this, like, constantly beginnings of ideas, beginnings of makings, and I look at it and just go, it's shit. And so immediately trying to think of it as an art project or practice, or how could this be in an exhibition, and I was just like, that all went out the window, and it was just, let's just play, because I like these things and I want to just do and make. And for me, I restricted it way down to, I worked with my scanner, my flat bed scanner, and images, and I just made collages and enjoyed the making. It was very immediate, and cut them up and digitally, and so there was just kind of layers and layers of language being, with no rhyme or reason, no kind of saying this is art. It was just play, and that kind of got the rhythm of it back. Yeah. And I also got a residency in a darkroom for a month as well, and that was really wonderful in a upstate New York, this women's, what is it called? Women's studio, and it's a printmaking space in Rosendale, New York, and they have a darkroom. It's mainly for litho or paper making, but they have people coming from all over the world, and it's only for women artists or women identifying, and residencies. And so they gave me the darkroom for the month, and I could do whatever I wanted. And I set up a little tiny studio space in the darkroom, because they had a storage space, and made the prints back and forth. And it was, yeah, just that facility allowed for things to happen.
So playing and also changing a little bit the environment. Yeah,
because it was like 1 month, you've got 1 month to do this, so what do you want to do with that time? It was, again, a kind of a thing about restrictions. And it's become a strategy of mine now. Like, I made a video work where it was like, I'm only going to focus on a particular box or particular materials that I have in my studio. So this is it. What can I do with that? And it really kind of, well, when you limit, it actually shows you how to be creative and find kind of, well, what can I do with this tiny microscope, with a phone and I don't know.
Yeah, to think outside the box. You need a box.
Yes. So have you gone through blocks?
I think I have. Yeah, definitely. But I'm still maybe thinking how I'm coping with it, or how I have coped with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just doing something, anything.
Yeah.
Without thinking, because I think my block was connected a lot to, okay, I have to now justify why I'm doing this thing.
Yeah.
And that is what is stopping me to keep doing it, because like, oh, yes, this doesn't have any meaning then, and then why am I doing it? And
yeah, because you have to bring in language when you're saying justification. You know, you're kind of, so it needs to be fully formed, or
and then you get so stiff. You get so stiff about it because, of course, yeah.
And I actually added a lecture to my BA course about beating the block, having, you know, how do you deal with blockages in practice, which they probably haven't experienced, because in art school you're just through the mill and you're doing projects and
everything
working
is new still, and how can you
but
be,
really interesting. It's one of the best discussions we have, because everybody knows it's either brings up conversations about self-confidence and anxiety, or it brings up actual tangible like mental health issues, or in my case being a mom and all the issues around motherhood and fear of becoming a parent and doing this thing, and really interesting conversations that, it's really interesting how years ago when I started doing this teaching, I didn't talk about those things at all. It was kind of writing a good application, what does your portfolio look like, the best of, having a website. But actually it's much more fruitful to talk about, well, actually when we're really lacking in self-confidence, or how do we critique our own practice, and why are we all so harsh on ourselves, or why do we think we're never as good in a place that we should be.
Do you somehow involve your friends and family into your practice, into your work?
Well, my immediate response to that was, God, no.
Interesting.
But that's not true. So I do make work alone, and I make work myself, but that's not always the case. And I partner or collaborate with certain projects at times. If I think about my family, well, my partner is a curator, and I value his opinion, and I would soundbite often. But like with both of our practice back and forth, we're talking about writing or ideas and stuff, but I also protect myself from exposing an idea before it's fully formed. So I want to kind of keep it tight to myself before I have the words, or I don't want it to puff away, and somebody has the power maybe when it's so fragile of an idea. If it's too fragile, that it might just, by the wrong kind of, because everybody's of course going, well, what are you talking about? Well, what do you mean? And if it's too in a loose state, a fog state, then it's not going to necessarily withstand that kind of critique. So I kind of would hold off on conversation with others. But I, like I said, I have a group of friends that we would gather and have a conversation. And I also share my studio space with another person, and we're always having conversations about what we're doing, where we're at. There's a lot of help and guide and boosting. It's kind of like that kind of, oh, I know it'll be brilliant, Suzanne. And it's like, oh, you think so? Oh, well, maybe it will be. And the same back to them as well. I have a funny anecdote about trying to title my show, because I had a few ideas, and I'm not very good with titles, or I find them hard. And so we were brainstorming at home, and both my daughter and my partner were like, no, it's terrible, shatter, scatter, it should be. And they just came up with ridiculous words together as laughing their heads off. And I'm like, right, okay, thanks, But that's it. Or my daughter, I have a piece of work in the show that is a phone that I found on the street, or she found on the street, that had been driven over by a car, and the screen is all smashed, and so that's in an image in the show. So when she went to see the exhibition, she's like, that's me, that's mine, I should have my name on this gallery. Yeah.
How old is she now?
She's 9.
Would you want her to be an artist?
I want her to be whatever she wants to be. I wouldn't have a problem with it. Yeah, I think I have I have a sneaky suspicion she might be an artist. She has declared very much that she won't be, but like she's literally at home painting a canvas right now, so it's very likely.
So she will accept it at some point.
I think she'll accept it, yeah. She's at that stage where she's really irritated by openings. I was able to go to openings with her for quite some time, but now she's having a lot of absolutely no way am I going to this opening. So
yeah, there are not many 9-year-olds at openings usually.
There's a few kids because we meet together. We make sure. Yeah,
No,
like
good,
last
yeah.
week we went to the Cockta opening and I bring colours and snacks and find a location on the stairwell and they hang out for an hour and we're able to hang out, coordinate with other mums and parents. But you can't stay for too long and sometimes it's not even possible. Some spaces or some types of exhibitions are just so unfriendly for kids, they're just having a miserable time, so there's no point. Yeah.
Well, it's good that you found some sort of a balance there.
A little bit, yeah. Enough treats is here, have another sweet. I'll have another 5 minutes.
Buying your time.
Literally buying my time, yeah.
Do you have some specific routines otherwise in your work or like processes of how you do it? How do you get into the mood of the work? Do you come here every day? No, I don't. It just depends on what phase in my life I'm at. This studio space is very close to where I work and quite close to where I live, so I could come for a moment, an hour or something, and leave again. But I'm absolutely not a daily user of my studio. More so in recent times, but I also like to work in libraries and I also work at home sometimes because I can do other tasks or chores. Like I said, I have these kind of very long arcs of practice, so when I feel like I'm in one, I'm very capable of getting into it very quickly again. So I'm always kind of working, behind at the back of my head with ideas or thoughts or notebooks, and then I might have an idea that I want to make or do, and then it's about finding time in my schedule and go, that's the day I'm going to do it, or that's the research in order to figure out how to do this thing. So that's it's very with the diary and with a kind of plan. So your process is more like a thought process and then a phase of a do.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Some artists are very much thinking through medium. I'm more conceptually led. So some projects are totally worked out in my mind, and then it's a case of now I put it into fruition. So now it manifests because I've worked it all out and I know what I'm doing, and that's what I'm doing. And there's still a little bit of leeway of how it comes about through the making of it. Certain things will work or not work, or you go different paths. But it's all thinking and then doing. But I'm in a more looser place now, and I'm doing a bit of thinking and then making through thinking, and it's a back and forth kind of conversation. But that's because I know the terrain and I know what I'm up to, and it's with glass and it's with photography and or video or objects that I'm interested in. For example, I've just acquired a crystal camera. So it's an ornament that Hasselblad made, and I was writing about it because I had seen it in 2 different exhibition contexts: a museum kind of history of the Hasselblad machine, within evolution of their technology, and then another exhibition in Tallinn as part of Photo Month Tallinn a few years back, and it was very different kind of contexts. And so I was writing about this, and it just felt really important that I could touch this thing and I could get it. And so I managed to get one. And I now have one, and I'm starting to make work with it. And it's been really nice to learn about the object and think about the object through seeing it, encountering it in different contexts, then writing about it, and now having one and playing with it and making and taking photographs of it, and touching it and learning from it in that sense.
What is it? Is it like a type of camera, or what is it?
I could show you. Would
Show
it help?
me. Yes, for sure.
So this is basically a replica, 1-to-1 scale, of the medium format camera that Hasselblad have. It's a 500 cm, if you know the medium formats, but it's made entirely of crystal glass, so it's a glass cast object. And they commissioned a glass factory in Sweden to make a large edition of these. I don't know how many is in the edition, but at least I think up to 10,000. And
For the true fans.
it is an ornament. So it was made in 1980s, and it is 1-to-1 scale, and it's really interesting as an object because it's actually the total opposite of what a camera is. A black box that doesn't let light in apart from very controlled through this and a mechanism. It's activated with its hood up, so it's a really interesting kind of object. Very curious. It's like, so I not a cheap thing either. So I have
If it's Hasselblad, for sure, it's not a cheap thing.
but totally functionless. It is. So if you think about, like, what do you get the retired photographer, and he's worked all his years in photography and he's about to retire, you buy him a glass cast Hasselblad, and he puts it in his shelf, and it's like a symbol of my years with photography or something. But I just find it so fascinating as an oddity. So it's an oddity. It sits outside of all the systems. Do you want to hold it?
I'm a bit concerned. But
Are you?
Maybe I can try.
Yeah.
I think that even if you drop this on the floor, it will not break. It's no, don't. I'm not going to try.
Don't do that. Yeah,
No.
but yeah, it's
Wow.
it has a robustness to it in the way that the camera might as well. Yeah.
I was thinking if it doesn't have a hole here,
No.
so this ends. You can't really
Yeah.
use it as a flower vase. Maybe some small flowers.
But this particularly
Amazing.
one had the sticker still on it, and it comes in its box. So I don't think it left the box for all its life, and it's 2054 in the edition. So I've been making some images about it. I just find it, as a metaphor, or as a symbol of photography. This glass, ghostly, nearly invisible
It
object.
is like a ghost of a camera.
It is a ghost of a
Yeah.
camera. And if you think about it, that's where we're at. We're not using cameras like that anymore. That's not what photography is or will be as we move with
You just generate your images at this point.
Yeah. You might think and...
Think
the
your
image.
image into existence.
Think your image into existence. Or tell AI what you want the image to be. And
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That.
So I'm just kind of interested in, of course, that object existed for a very particular purpose in a very particular time, but it has been activated in these two different contexts in different ways. And then I'm now interested in kind of talking about that within my doctoral thesis. So this is the avenues and wormholes I'm going down at the moment.
It's not one straight highway, let's put it that way.
No, but yeah, so we got to looking at that object because it was like, how do you do this thing, or how do I do this thing? But it's mainly concept thinking, research. That's curious, that's interesting. But that could easily be when you're in the dark room, when you do this certain thing, that's interesting, let's follow that path, but mostly kind of conceptually led, and then materials tell me something else. Yeah.
This is interesting to me because I'm one of the other people.
Oh, are you?
who don't
touching your way through the material or
yes,
something?
I feel like if I knew what I was doing, I would be really bored by the time I get to do it.
That can happen too, yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of a fear to the way I have it. Okay, I have it all planned, and it'll look like this, and it'll do this, and it'll activate in this way, and then you're doing it, and you're like, oh, I don't think this is not registering the way I thought it would, you know. So there is trepidation in this path, but that's when you kind of go, all right, how if I approach it this way, or this way, or this way? But I need to know what is the terrain in which I'm working in? What's the parameters of it?
I usually need to know only the very, very general frame.
Yeah.
But not
specifics.
Not specifics, no.
Like there's a work in the show in Turku at the moment it's a video projection of 33 fragments from a single photograph. And when I made it, I knew I wanted to find a glass plate negative of certain things and elements, and then smash it on the ground, and then make an image from each of the fragments that it smashed. So there was a randomness in that, but at a certain point is I conceptually decided what I was doing, I did it, and then the work exists as it is. So there's kind of those frameworks I find very useful. But I feel like there was a lot of people making work like that in the UK when I was studying, and so there's kind of, maybe I'm influenced by
we are all products of our times.
Absolutely, we are.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. When I had the show in Hippalutta, one member of the audience said, "Oh, I could tell you were from the Royal College because you wrote about your work in the press release like somebody who went to the Royal College." And I was really, I was surprised that it was that alarmingly obvious. And I was like, oh, damn it, I haven't evolved or moved on. But yeah, you learn certain tropes and certain language or certain ways, and sometimes you don't loosen that, or it doesn't kind of leave you. But also, like, isn't that a good thing as well? Maybe, you know, sometimes. Yeah, you can't avoid it.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
I'm sometimes asking people, not every time, maybe I should just be more persistent with it, but the role of social media in your work and in your presence, and how much do you use it? And maybe not only social media, but just generally total online presence.
Online presence. Well, as you mentioned beforehand, you found it hard to find me because my website is down and being reconstructed at the moment. And I've been very remiss with keeping that up to date, even though I think that is really key for us artists to have our projects or our stuff in one place that's not social media, that's a little bit more the amount of image or text or, you know, chronology or whatever of your practice exists in that you can easily link people to or send people to. So websites are really important, and I've been very bad at keeping mine up, but I'm addressing it. And then I have I ebb and flow with Instagram. I've kind of given up on Facebook. I find it really annoying.
I think many people have.
Yeah, it's not working for me at all. But Instagram, I still have faith, even though it's really irritating.
Even though it's owned by Facebook.
Stop. And I do think that Instagram was a better tool for artists in the past. It's becoming quite difficult now with so many. Like, I just want to see the people I follow and they to see me or whatever who's following me, and it's becoming really cloudy. The minute you look at a reel and then you suddenly get something like that constantly into your kind of feed. But having said that, it's visual. It can be diaristic. It can be points in work in progress, or so. I tend to use Instagram very much as an artist, not personal life, but art and what I may be looking at and seeing. But then behind, like, it might be a sketch of something or an install, or promoting something that's on at the moment, or if I have an exhibition, I'll be promoting it through that.
Are you sometimes looking at other artists' work there?
Definitely, yeah. I really like looking at stuff, and I like when people give access to what they're reading or what they're seeing, or their sketchbook or work in progress. All those kind of things are really interesting accesses into people's practice. So but it's also institutions and what they're kind of putting together, curating kind of programs, and it's not just artists and their work, but it's a clunky tool. I don't think it'll evolve in our favor, and there might be something else that will come in and take over in the way that we kind of need it to and want it to. But for now,
we're stuck with it.
We're stuck with it, yeah. It's interesting how like a lot more people are finding me there than I would expect.
Just like I found you there.
Yeah. I think it's also become very it's an acceptable way of communicating with people without being too invasive, or like it's not as official as writing a letter, or even an email is a bit kind of unusual these days in terms of cold calling, but sending a link or sending a message or sending through that means is actually okay. Informing somebody that you might not know but you'd like to let them know about a project that you're doing or an exhibition that's on, it seems totally okay that you've done it, and not necessarily expecting a response back, or if you do, it's like cool, whatever, but it's a light way of kind of doing this networking aspect of spreading the word.
It's funny that when you write to somebody there that you don't know, or you haven't followed, that you can only write one message to the person. You're not allowed to write more than one message.
Oh, are you not?
Yeah, no, because after they have to accept it afterwards, and then you can chat more. But like, you only have one message,
so you can't bombard.
No.
Okay, I didn't know that. I've obviously not gone beyond the one message, or I've always received a reply. No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, but I'm still not very good with it. Like, I'm like a bit clunky, and it's just stints and spurts, kind of. I might go very quiet on it now for a few weeks after this show, where I feel like I've just been bombarding people with, I'm doing a guided tour.
There's this
installing.
Like a fine line between informing and spamming.
Absolutely, yeah. I have blocked people because I'm like, oh, stop with your 3 a day.
Let's move on maybe to the studio finally.
Okay.
I mean, this is the one core element of the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I'm also very curious always about artists.
And when I was looking through a lot of the previous editions, it's always really nice to kind of peer into a studio, because you rarely get to see in a studio.
Yeah. So tell me about the studio. How big is this space? Let's start with that.
Oh God, big enough. I don't know what the square footage of it is, but it's a basement space in an apartment block. So it's not a studio complex or anything, but
it's pretty big for a basement. I could say that it's really like spacious.
It is spacious, and there's a bit of a kitchenette area and a bathroom, and then there's this no frills space which I quite like. There's no, this is not where you bring someone to impress them about like the view or it's a shabby cave.
Shabby chic.
Shabby chic, very shabby, less chic. Yeah, but it has been rented by artists for at least 10 years. And so it just goes from one to another. So you
inherited it from someone?
I did inherit it. And Noora Giagia used to be here.
Oh, really?
And you've done a podcast with her. So she's now out on Harakka Island.
Yes.
In that beautiful space,
It was pretty impressive.
It's impressive, but then it's also restrictive in terms of how the times you can get to it and not. So it's...
She was rowing her own boat,
I know.
So
I'm so impressed. Or they walk on the ice as well, when it's really solid.
It's really close to the mainland, so...
It is, but yeah. But anyway, that's not where we are. But she was here before, and so it's always been in artists' hands. And there are 3 of us in this space. One person who doesn't live in Helsinki but uses it as a storage. So they're 1/3, but never really here. They're every so often.
Conceptual third.
It's the best type of studio. It's just probably the cheapest storage option for them, and they have a large space to put all their stuff. And then I share this room with another artist, Mona Marzouk, and we're often here together, but also separate. And it's a very quiet, very warm studio. Probably the warmest I've ever had.
It's very nice. I enjoy warm
toasty,
environments. This is great temperature.
It's perfect temperature, yeah. So gone are the days where I'm hugging a radiator underneath my table. I'm spoiled for that sense. But it's just a place where it's quiet, and I need to use it to shut everything out.
Yeah, you said you don't really produce your work here.
I do,
or maybe partly.
But it's thinking, it's quiet. That's how I really need the noise to be pushed away, and this immediately gets to that zone. And I know that I talk a lot when I'm here, which is a bit self-conscious when somebody else is in the room. But I'm
okay with it.
How does this look? I should try that. I have this kind of split personality, and they're talking away to each other when I'm making work or deep in this thing. But this allows me to do that, I think. But I haven't always had a studio.
Is that your favorite part of this studio? It's
quiet and I can be here on my own. Yeah, I have to say, yeah. Because there's so much busyness in other parts of my life, and lots of people, and this is where it just goes really quiet and calm. But I have had studios in my home. I have had no studio. I've had studios in really cool art spaces, and
have you had the studio only by yourself, like alone?
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's wonderful because it's like...
Which one do you prefer, like to be alone or to be with
right, you see, it depends, because I've had it and I've been very lonely and it's not good for me. But right now, with the intensity of work, the alone is good. But like Mona is extremely quiet and respectful, and we divide our time sometimes, and we're here working silently together.
Yeah,
it's very few people you can do that with, actually, but...
Is it? Oh,
I don't know. Like people get irritated by different kind of maybe messiness or.
Yeah, maybe it depends.
Of course. Yeah, but you kind of have to work out what's the right way to do it.
Do you store here your art or?
Yeah. Yeah. This is where all the shit is. The years of stuff that you're like.
I mean, it really doesn't look like very cluttered.
No, because I've just done a big clear out. Somebody's coming to record. Yes, I must bring that.
I didn't
new shelf.
I didn't catch the complete authenticity of it.
No, you didn't. No. This is a little bit. No, but like, it's a really interesting how my work can be very precise and particular, but my workspace is not, and it can layers upon layers of where is that and what is that. And then every so often I do a big clear and a sort, like I'm about to shift from taking everything down off the wall and putting up the new stuff, because I just need the writing process to begin, and that needs a different thing, and I don't want to be looking at
I
stuff.
cannot have anything like on the wall in front of
Can
me.
you not?
No, I need it, and my table I always have it empty
Really?
because it's just so distracting otherwise.
I have images that I've had for years up on the wall, and they're triggers or they're moments or they're, and it could be somebody else's or a cutout of something or my own stuff, but it's a reminder or a gesture or a thought process to get into.
When I had a different studio before, I had more space and I had like a part of the wall with that, but that was not the wall I was under.
Yeah, okay.
So you can turn your head and see that, but not necessarily see it all the
clarity, time. Yeah. So my wall is looking a little bit more like loads of pieces of paper with remember to write about this, or this is how the logic of this big entity is going to look. So it's mapping kind of space that I'll need now, whereas before it was the tone of the
like a mood board.
Oh, that sounds very Pinterest, and I don't know if that's nice.
It sounds a bit like that.
No, but triggers. Remember triggers. Yeah. Like that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. Remember this juxtaposition or something like that. Yeah. So there's things I've lived with in my space that I'm really happy to always live with. And then.
How important it is for an artist to have a space?
Oh
like
God, a room of one's own. Whatever way that manifests for different people have different needs. But I think it's so vital. Even if I don't use it very much, just knowing that it's here. Like when I'm deep in courses and I'm working and I don't get here from 1 week to the next, still knowing that when I come back it's here in the same way, in the same form. My stuff is here. It's acting as a storage space as much as it is a holding space. It's a reminder to do it as well. It's interesting, when I was in London I could never afford a studio myself, so I would sublet from a friend, and I would do that for up to an exhibition or a big kind of work mode, and it was really amazing. I was just like, oh, if only I could live this dream.
And there you are now, living it.
Yeah, living the dream. My cave.
Okay, maybe just going towards the end of this long and lovely conversation. But you said you go to exhibitions. Where would you usually go to see an exhibition? Are there certain places that you visit?
Oh. Yeah.
Sharp turns into the topic.
So we're in Helsinki, so that's usually the place. But so regularly I go to Sinna, Hippolöt, where else do I go? Kohta, Kiasma to see one of their exhibitions that just opened recently. Amos Rex, just went to I like what they do at Gallery Sculpture as well. Where else? A few other, oh my God. Then more discursive spaces. So I go to Publix a lot. But
it's not too far.
It's not too far from here. And Museum of Impossible Forms whenever I can, and they have a program on. Trying to think where. Yeah, Cable Factory. Find myself there at various venues sometimes. And then we're so close to Tallinn, and it's amazingly close, and yet there's such a different vibe and scene there. And Kai Art Centre is really good. I try and see what they're doing as much as possible, and Kumu and other EKKM and stuff like that. So I'm sure I'm missing loads out of of course, I'm in Kuva a lot, so I'm always seeing what they're putting on in Kuvatilla.
Yeah.
And Vapentaidertilla is such an underappreciated space. It's really interesting.
As a space itself, it's great.
It's amazing.
I participated a couple of times there.
Like sound there, so any sound work, performance is really amazing in that space. So I would hope that more people other than the student community go to that space, because it is really...
But then it's for the student exhibitions, so it's hard to have a different crowd if it's...
But this is what I think is really frustrating about our scene, is it's very siloed. Like there's like you get into the habit, I get into the habit as well, of going to one place all the time but not another, or never making it out to SICK, even though I really like their program. Oh, Pitted Dates, I really like their program as well, you know. But like we're close to Kalasatama, so there's those spaces there, BioArt Society, or... Like I tend to go when I know the person as well. Like
yes, my next question would be like, what are some artists, like actual names that you follow their work?
So like in the scene, or...
No, generally. From all the art people ever existed.
Oh my god!
Just a few. Okay, maybe currently what is
okay, but let's talk with something tangible like that. Like I think the exhibition, Larissa Sansour exhibition in Amas Rex right now, is really beautiful, really interesting.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's like I just think the way that it's been installed and the sound system and the state-of-the-art AV equipment, it just lends itself to really good for that practice. And it's very theatrical and operatic and gravitas, and it works really well in that space, this kind of vaulted large space. And yeah, I really appreciate how that came together. So that's yeah, but like, so what else? Cindy Pelkey in Tidal Museum in Turku is a really beautiful exhibition, and she works with photography and film and installation, and I think she works with photography in a really good kind of manner in terms of the objecthood of it and the performativity of making images. So I really appreciate her practice. One that I was so excited when I discovered is Barbara Caston, and she's an American photographer who was made super interesting studio-based object photos, and made these kind of worlds to photograph, and there was a very particular angle to how something kind of just came about, where something, you know, it was never the sum of its parts, it was always how it kind of assembled with this particular kind of angle of attack. Really beautiful, color, bright, curious, unknowing. So kind of loved discovering her practice when I was a student. Claude Cahoon, she's fabulous, you know, human firstly, and then also like so radical and amazing photographic kind of performative practice. So it was kind of wild to discover her as well when I was at the age of needing to find female artists that I could identify with, because I had this I was very influenced by conceptual art and artists.
That's like
men.
all the men there.
All the men, and I was loving the men, liking the practices, but just because I was like, oh, this is really problematic that you know, I'm really writing about or thinking about, or you know, even into this as a kind of concept. So when you find a female protagonist in the history of art making, it's really important. Really, it was key. I always really, oh God, it's so hard to kind of be like, if I think about maybe Tacita Dean when I was in the UK. I really loved her practice. Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. These are already
A flood of names.
Some names to choose from. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's you know, when you kind of, I don't think I'm like, oh, that person and that person alone, and that's it. It's like it's ever evolving, and you discover a work or one thing. Like at the moment, I just read about Ana Mendietta's work that she made with glass and distorting her body with a pane of glass, and this photographic series that she made in '72. So, you know, everything is very honing in on this, discovering people who have worked with this material in this medium. But that's a beautiful gesture series that I'm excited to have found.
Thank you.
Sorry for the coughing.
No, it's okay. And I'm glad that you said that. Okay, now I can do this now, even though you're still.
Well, last week I didn't have a voice, so.
We postponed for a week because.
Totally gone.
It's the season of the.
It is the
people
flu season.
Are sick.
Yeah, but thank you for coming, and you know, it's really interesting to just set up and meet somebody that you've never met before and have a chat and see where it goes.
Just pour your practice out.
Yeah. I don't know if I did that. I don't know. I feel like I was very sporadic in my conversation.
Maybe not. Yeah. I don't know yet. I mean, it's funny that I have one feeling when we're talking, and then I sit to edit it, and it's completely different talk.
Okay.
Okay, this is how it went. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know yet how it went.
I've certainly enjoyed other people's. Whether I'll look at my own or not is totally another thing. Yeah. But there you go.